Welcome to The Explainer. So today, we're exploring this absolutely fascinating pocket of preserved history, hidden right smack in the middle of modern Tokyo. I mean, imagine this. You step out of a high-tech, neon-lit labyrinth of sleek glass and steel, and boom, you are instantly transported back 80 years in time. It's wild. That's the magic of Omoide Yokocho. It's like a tiny, glowing time capsule that has just stubbornly survived and really thrived, while this massive city completely modernized all around it.
Okay, let's dive into this, because right off the bat, we've got to talk about the name of this place, or, well, the two very different names it goes by. Today, you'll mostly hear it called Omoide Yokocho, which charmingly translates to memory lane. Kind of sounds fond and nostalgic, right? But locals used an older, much blunter nickname for decades, and that is Shoben Yokocho. That translates directly as piss alley. Talk about a jarring contrast.
So that naturally brings us to an obvious question. Why on earth did a beloved cultural landmark earn such a crude nickname? Well, it wasn't just some colorful metaphor. Back in the early days, these incredibly crammed stalls were built with absolutely zero plumbing, literally no toilets whatsoever. So what did the patrons do after downing a few drinks? They just went ahead and relieved themselves right against the nearby train tracks. So the name wasn't an insult at all. It was actually just a highly accurate description of the local geography.
Section 1. Born in the Black Market. We're heading back to the post-war ruins of the 1940s.
And this brilliantly illustrates just how insanely small this footprint really is. Just 2,000 square meters. Out of the burnt ruins around Shinjuku Station, vendors started this open-air market called Lucky Street. And the fact that they did it in just 2,000 square meters is mind-blowing. It's incredibly tiny. Yet within this super tight space, right alongside the train tracks, they somehow squeezed in roughly 60 to 80 narrow shops. It's a real testament to the sheer necessity and resourcefulness of that post-war era. Over time, that loose cluster of stalls essentially hardened into the cramped alleys of tiny wooden counters that you can still see today. Now, this chaotic early market traded in far more than just a quick bite to eat. Sure, Lucky Street provided cheap meals and drinks for laborer passing through the station, but it also sold scarce daily necessities. We're talking things like soap and clothing, the absolute basics that people desperately needed but just couldn't get their hands on through official channels after the Second World War. And of course, it was a major hub for cheap protein, specifically grilled offal and skewers, which perfectly fed a really hungry rebuilding workforce. Let's move to and see how this builds across the decades, because it really is fascinating. It all kicked off with those 1940s black market stalls. Then, through the post-war decades, as Tokyo slowly started to recover, it evolved into this absolute staple drinking street for the everyday Japanese salaryman. Fast forward to 1999, and a massive tragedy struck when a huge fire destroyed a big chunk of the alley. But here's the kicker. Rather than modernizing and throwing up high-rises, it was stubbornly rebuilt to match its exact post-war look. And that brings us right to today, where it stands proudly as a preserved Showa-Era landmark. But honestly, here is my favorite little detail from that whole timeline. The nickname completely outlived the actual problem. For literally decades, tourists and locals alike kept calling it Piss Alley. And it wasn't until that major rebuild after the 1999 fire that actual modern bathrooms were finally installed. Just think about that for a second. They were right on the edge of the year 2000 before this place finally got indoor plumbing. No wonder that old name stuck around for the long haul. Moving on to Section 2, this signature charcoal grill. This is really the sensory heart of the alley, and we're going to see how this specific food became its defining characteristic. So the crucial point is that scarcity completely dictated the menu here. If you walk down this alley today, the thick, rich smoke of charcoal grills just hangs in the air everywhere you go. But how did that happen? Well, in those lean post-war years, prime cuts of meat were incredibly expensive, basically impossible to get. But offal, the organs, was cheap and plentiful. So these stalls just started grilling what they could actually afford: pork and chicken organs over charcoal. It's a style called Motsuyaki. It was this clever, highly affordable staple designed specifically for laborers, and it remains the alley's proud signature dish to this very day. I absolutely love this quote from food and drink writer Ryotei Keda, because it perfectly captures the vibe. He says, "The history is on the grill, not just the signboards. When you eat shiro or riba at a counter here, you are eating the same cheap, clever cooking that fed laborers in the 1940s. Nothing about the smell of that charcoal has changed in 80 years." Wow, that is just incredible, isn't it?
The very smell of that charcoal smoke is literally a bridge, connecting the modern workers of Tokyo directly back to the laborers who originally rebuilt the city.
Section 3. A preserved slice of Showa. Let's look at how this incredible slice of Tokyo actually survived in a city of massive towers, standing right alongside rare spots like Golden Gai and Amiyoko.
You see, what makes Omoide Yokocho so famous today isn't just the incredible food. It's the simple, unbelievable fact of its survival. While Japan's post-war economic boom turned Tokyo into this ultra-modern city of massive steel towers, this one little alley just remained. When we talk about its specific aesthetic, we're talking about the Showa-Era. Now, this period ran from 1926 to 1989, and it really forms the absolute foundation of Japanese modern nostalgia. So when photographers and filmmakers inevitably descend on this alley, and by the way, it is one of the most photographed spots in all of Shinjuku, they're chasing that old Tokyo, Showa-Era look. The low wooden fronts, the glowing red lanterns, those gorgeous hand-painted signs. It creates this beautifully textured atmosphere that you just cannot manufacture in a brand new high-rise. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is that this place isn't just some dusty museum exhibit. Yeah, it's unmistakably touristy now, packed with cameras on any given evening. But underneath all of that, it is absolutely still a genuine, working, drinking street with the original counters. You can literally pull up a stool at a place like Kabuto, which has been grilling eel since 1948, or Yasabe, pouring drinks since 1951. Every single night, countless Tokyo workers clock out and carry on the exact same tradition of post-shift highballs and offal. And that brings up a super fascinating point about preservation, which is highlighted brilliantly by editor Claire Whitmore right here. She notes, you can see the history if you look up. The low wooden facades, the hand-painted signs, the lack of a single chain store, none of that is an accident. It was rebuilt that way on purpose after 1999, which is why the alley feels older than almost anything around it. This is so absolutely crucial to take away from this explainer, that 1999 rebuild wasn't some upgrade to modern building standards. No, it was a highly intentional, deliberate act of preservation by the Alley Association. They wanted to keep that Showa soul intact. Every cramped stall, every low awning, painstakingly reconstructive.
So, as we wrap up today's explainer, I want to leave you with a question to really chew on. Is a space completely rebuilt in 1999 to look exactly like it did in 1940, a tourist trap? Or is it the truest form of living history? Think about it. When the original wood burns away, but the spirit, the food, and the community are deliberately preserved by the very people who work there day in and day out, what does authentic really mean? The next time you see a photo of Omoide Yokocho's glowing red lanterns, or hey, if you're lucky enough to actually smell that charcoal smoke yourself, keep that in mind. Thanks for learning with me today, and keep exploring.